Hello, Mark.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good. Yeah, very good. I'm on half term this week, so I'm enjoying a bit of time at home. But yeah, really looking forward to this tonight.
Okay, good. I'm going to just explain who you are to you, and
Thanks.
indeed whoever's watching. You are a Ableton certified trainer,
I am.
a Max for Live developer of the highest caliber.
Oh well, won't say that, but yeah, I do make Max Live devices.
Well, I think so. And me and you are both affiliated with Isotonic Studios, where we have been making and releasing devices there for many years now.
It does feel like it, doesn't it? Yeah,
Yes, maybe even a decade.
could be, could be.
Um, what have you been? It's been a while since I've sort of seen anything you've been doing since like the arcade stuff. You must have
Yeah,
done stuff since then.
yeah. I've done a few. I mean, through Isotonic, I've done a few things. I did like an arpeggiator, an MPE arpeggiator, which I got really into, and then all the MP devices it was based on, the controllers, all stopped making them. So that was like the Rolly C board, the C board block, and the Sensor Morph, and they stopped making them. So
Oh,
I got really excited about stuff, and then the hardware is not really available anymore. Yeah, then a few other bits and pieces, but I've been doing lots of stuff with kind of installations and working with. This is probably more on my trainer side, working with artists who are doing installation work and kind of helping them develop their sort of systems using Max for Live. So
right.
lots of kind of more, bit more support stuff than my own devices. So I want to get back onto releasing a few things. Quite eager again, but
Yeah.
it's been good. It's good working with other people and working with other people's ideas and trying to help them bring it to fruition.
So you've kind of been doing installation consultation.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Fantastic. Well, thanks for doing this. And I suppose I better explain why I've invited you along
Mm.
because um, you've always been very good at making good use of hacking the live API, whether that is well, actually, I suppose, and also kind of hacking hardware controllers to get them to do interesting stuff like the push, building custom sequences on the push that have full like visual feedback. But also kind of working with the API to get Ableton to do stuff with Max for Live. This is stuff that I've never ever done or understood, and I've never had the time to try and work out because I think maybe the last time I looked at it was probably when it came out about 10 years ago, and I was
Yeah.
like, I'm never going to understand that. Fast forward 10 years, I know a little bit more now than I used to, but I still
Mhm.
know nothing. And I was kind of trying to refresh my mind a little bit, and I watched like some more up to date stuff, like the live object model flow chart has been updated in the documentation and everything.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's still like really complicated. And I'm someone who really struggles like riding the London Underground.
Yeah.
So there's like no way I'm going to work this out. So hopefully you're going to help me understand
Hope
it
so.
better.
Hope so.
And we're going to do that in the form of building a custom Lfo. So Ableton has a very popular Lfo where you click the map button and then you can map it to parameters in Ableton and it will do all kinds of things. But we're going to make our own one. I'm going to make the Lfo part. Then I'm going to send it to you down Zoom and I'm going to watch you implement the API mapping.
Yeah.
And hopefully I will learn some things. So if you're all cool with that, I'll get started.
Let's do it.
Okay, so I've got Max here. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Right, so basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build like a custom Lfo designer where you'll be able to kind of click and drag through a thing to make a wave shape and then use phases and stuff to ramp through that wave shape in order to create the Lfo shape. So probably the place to start will be is not create a bang. Let's zoom in a bit further. I'm going to create a buffer or another bang. Create a buffer. I'm going to call it dash 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 custom Lfo. So the dash 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 means that if you want to use multiple instances of it in a set, the dash 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 will generate a unique ID so that they're not referencing the same buffer. And that's really all for now. And I'm going to use, just for whilst I'm working on this, I'm going to use a waveform object with the same name as the buffer at buffer name custom Lfo. So that buffer is currently empty. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill that buffer with some data on the sample level. So probably one thing I might want to do is specify how many samples I want in the buffer. Maybe whilst I'm here, I'll make a live number box so that we can make sure it works for Max for Live Later. And I kind of just need to set some things here. Let's set it to integers, and I want to have a minimum value of 2, and let's say a maximum value of 64. So there'll be up to 64 steps available. Okay, so I'll plug that into my pre-penned SAMPs and plug that into my buffer, and then I should be able to set how many samples I want in my buffer, but we can't really see anything in there yet because we need to fill it with some stuff. So I'm going to use a multi-slider, and I'm going to set the size, pre-penned size, with the same number as the number that I'm setting for how many samples I want. So I'm going to draw values into the buffer with this multi-slider. And whilst I'm there, I'm going to make a trigger, B for bang and S for symbol, so that when I do this, I first trigger setting the size, and then I'll bang the content. So if I change the size, the buffer kind of retains what's previously, rather than clearing the whole buffer, what the contents gets kind of kept in there. So let's start with 16. So I should have 16 sliders there. Yeah, okay. And to make it make more sense, I'm going to go to change the style to bar, and we're going to go for sliders, draw sliders as signed display. Yeah, so that looks a little bit more like a waveform. Okay. And then I'm going to create a list funnel, and I'm going to put all of this data into a peak, and the peak is going to write that data to the buffer, which is called -- custom Lfo. So all I need to do is plug that in there, and that's basically how I'm going to write into my buffer. And so if I click and drag, we can actually see here with this waveform object that's showing the contents of the buffer that we have in fact drawn stuff into that buffer. So that's how we're going to make our custom Lfo. So if we went down to like 2 samples, we could have like a sort of 2-stage Lfo like this, or 2-stage wave. And if we go up to 64, we've got like a really kind of like quite fine amount of like samples that we can have in there to draw like a more interesting wave shape. So we've got that bit. How are we going to read it back? Well, we're going to read it back with wave. I'll explain why. First, I need to give it the name of the buffer, which is -- custom Lfo. A start point and an end point. I won't bother with the final argument. This is what we're going to use to read the contents of the buffer. And the reason why I've picked wave is because it's got these various interpolation attributes, which we'll look at in a minute. We need a way to drive the wave. So I'm going to use phaser to start with. And very quickly, if I make a live scope down here, we can have a look. Just quickly make an easy DAC so we can turn on the DSP. And then if I start playing with this, okay, there's our Lfo.
Cool.
Jobs are good. And then if we go down to smaller size, like 2, we can have kind of like a triangle like that. So this is when we get to the interpolation part. Currently, the interpolation is linear, which means it's going to kind of just ramp from one sample to another. If we set it to none, we get a square wave. I'm actually going to go into this and set the range to something a touch larger, -1.1 to 1.1. So we've got a little bit of headroom there. And yeah, so no interpolation means we get a square wave. Linear means we get a triangle, and cosine means we get a nice sine wave like that. So as we add more samples, we can draw in more kind of complex waveforms. So that's kind of where I'm going with making the custom LFO. So there's probably a couple more things that we need to think about. Let's get rid of that. We don't need that for now. We'll keep the scope in there because it's nice. It looks good. So we probably want to have some settings here. Let's start with making a live tab for our interpolation. So we'll go to live tab. I'll go into the inspector and I'll choose none, linear, and cosine. The problem is that we can't send, if I do prepend interp, we can't send these symbols in. It doesn't respond. I don't know why. It only responds to the numbers. And because cosine is at a different index, I'm going to have to find a way to back. I only really want to use these ones. A lot of the other ones are kind of similar, but, you know, they don't really interest me as much. So I'm just going to go with linear and cosine and none. So I'm just going to actually make another tab here, just a normal max tab. And I'll give that the indexes which I want, which I believe will be 0, 1, and 3. So if I connect, the tab is going to have the same index. So if I go, okay, that should that should mean I can just connect that to the prepend interp and then into the wave. And then if I choose that, all right, now we can, no, that says low quality. Why is that? Oh, because I need the symbol, not the number. There we go. Yes. So we can have no interpolation, linear interpolation, and cosine interpolation. That's really all I want. So now we probably want a way to set the frequency of our phaser. We can have one phaser that's running a free rate, but we don't need it to go to, actually, I'm going to go right click, prototype frequency. I'm going to set it to large, but we don't really need it to go really fast because that's just silly. We don't need it to go up to 10,000 hertz. This is a low frequency oscillator, so it's best to keep it within low ranges. So I'm actually just going to set it to go from 0.01 to 20 hertz, which I think is plenty. So we don't really need it to go higher than that. So we can have that as our free running phaser. And then we'll have a second one, which can be tempo synced. So we'll do phaser, let's just say 16N at lock 1. And then let's make a live menu. Let's go to the prototype and choose note values. But I'm going to add a few more items. I'm going to add some bars, beats, and units values. So let's try 2.0.0. Let's see if this works. 4.0.0, 8.0.0, and let's go with 16.0.0. So we can have 2 bars, 4 bars, 8 bars, and 16 bars. Incredibly long, slow LFO. Let's see if this works. So, okay, so really, I think all we would need to do is just connect the, so if we connect the item symbol output to our phaser, we should be able to bounce between having, let's just check quickly with a small scope. Should be able to bounce between having note values. Yeah. And then bars, beats, and units. Let's try 2 bars. Okay, that's working fine. So I think all we need to do now, create a selector. Okay, so we've got our selector, and then we'll simply plug our free running phaser into one input and our tempo synced phaser into another input, and then we'll make another live tab here, and we will give it, let's say, free and sync. And then, okay, let's try and organize this. We'll just add a 1 here, +1. And then we should be able to switch between our free running phaser and our tempo synced phaser. So that is, yeah, that's that one. And then let's look, see if this one works. I think it does. All right. I think that's basically all I'm prepared to do. I'll tell you what, just to make it a bit easier for you, maybe, assuming this is what you might want, I'll do a snapshot every 1 millisecond. Get in there. And then change to filter out the floating point numbers, or does it all have to be integers?
No.
No?
No. I'll just take the... I should be able to go straight from wave, actually.
Okay, I'll get rid of all that. I'll put the live scope back in though. All right. Okay, I'm going to save this now. Put it on my desktop, Custom Lfo. And I will send it to you right now in the chat.
Cool. Awesome. Okay, so this needs to be an audio, max for live audio effect. So max for live audio effects, and we'll just go for blank one. Open this up. Okay, so this is our starting point. I think I've just opened up your device as well. So let me just copy that into here. I'm just going to switch it over to presentation, opening presentation straight away.
That's always a good thing to do. I think
Yeah.
I'm gonna start doing that now. You said that, even though I just said it's always a good thing to do, and I've never actually done it. I'm gonna start doing that.
Okay. Right. So yeah, there's all your stuff, and I'll just shove that, keep it on the left-hand side for now, and get started then. So we're now, essentially, I just want to take this section here. We want to be able to map that. So you've got a control signal coming out of wave. Let's just get this going. So just remind me, I need to set
the number of samples, or essentially steps.
Yeah.
If you will, in the LFO, where well, rather in the buffer, which I think is empty right now. So, oh no, yeah, there you go. That's working.
Okay. Yeah, cool. And we've got the synced version as well. Yeah, cool. Okay, so I've got that working. So we've got the control signal coming out here, and essentially we're wanting to do what the stock Max for Live devices do, that we have a map button, and we can map this control to control any parameter in Ableton Live. That's kind of what we want to do here. So I'll just get a couple of things we need to begin with then. So we'll go for live text, and this is going to be our map button. And I know it has some behavior when you're doing the Max for Live, the stock ones. I think where it flashes. I'm not going to bother doing that today, but you can obviously put that in later on if you want to. We'll just keep it simple for now. So this is going to be my map button. And to get started with the API then, so what I need to do, even though I can do a lot of this stuff now just from memory, it's from when you're starting out, you will need to use that roadmap, that London Underground map, unfortunately, which is this thing. So this is the updated version. So yeah, I guess for anyone who isn't aware of what this is, building your Max for Live device is fine if you're just building like synth samplers, instruments, that kind of thing. But when you tap into this side, which is called the Live API, you're kind of working with the very backbone of Ableton Live. So lots of parts of Ableton Live have been made available for you to interact with via your Max for Live device. So for example, you could make devices that do perform actions on a track or clips or different device parameters. There's so much, and it seems to get expanded all the while. It's quite a big list. This is it. This is called the live object model. It's on the Cycling Centre website. First time you look at this, maybe this is what happened with yourself. It definitely happened with me when I first looked at it, scrolled through and just freaked me out because it's this huge list of stuff. But once you realize how it works, you start to see there's a pattern as to how things have been structured. To get started, we have the roadmap at the top. That's this bit. This is like a roadmap from one of 4 starting points to the thing you want to control. So let's say in this situation, we want to control a device parameter. Okay, if we look around this map enough, we'll see that over here, there's an area for, we've got things like selected parameter, we've got device parameter here. But we've got these starting points, and I think they've repositioned them now. They're at the top. They used to be down the left-hand side. So the starting points, there's only 4 of them. There is either, sorry, I need to, there we go. It's either a control surface, as you mentioned before. So if you were building a device that wanted to kind of go to a different part of a control surface, like a button or something, that'd be your starting point. The live app, you'd use this as your starting point. And I'll show you how to construct the kind of message for this in a moment. This would be your starting point if you wanted to do some kind of device that controls the overall application of live, regardless of which particular project is loaded up. So maybe you wanted to do something that kind of toggles the browser or something like that, something to do with the UI maybe. The common one that you'll see quite a lot is this one, live set. That means the starting point of your device is related to the specific live set it's in. So it might be that it's controlling something in a live set, like a clip or a track or a device parameter, because they are unique to the currently loaded live set. Every live set will have different devices and things on it that you might want to control. So this would be the common starting point for this kind of thing. There's one, and when I'm saying a starting point, if you think that everything we're doing, we're trying to get to here, we're trying to get to device parameter. We want to get to a specific device parameter that we choose so your LFO can control it. But it's almost right at the bottom. So we're trying to find starting points. So the way I'd think of this is, it is like a roadmap. It's like a map application where it's got your starting location and you put in your destination, and it will tell you all the different things you need to go through to get there. So if there's one more as well that's not on, I don't think it's on the map. There's one more starting point, but I think it's listed right at the bottom, and it's this device. Seems to be a bit hidden. This one is a really handy one. The starting point is your actual device, which is useful if once you go to your device, you can do things like ask it questions like, what track am I on? What other devices are on the track? So it's an easy way of getting more information about the actual location of where your particular Max device is currently loaded, but we don't need to use that today. We specifically want to look at device parameter. Now, we don't want to build like a massive list of every device parameter that's available and see them in the menu. We just want to be able to do the way they do it with the stock Max for Live devices in Live, where you click map and then you just click on whatever parameter, like I click on a reverb send or a channel fader, and then it kind of learns it. That's the easiest way to do it. So we'll kind of simulate that process. You could do it in a way that, populates a menu with all the available parameters, but that could be quite large. That could take up a lot of space. The learning method is much more useful, I think. So we'll do that approach. And to do that, there is actually an option here. You can see there's something called selected parameter. Okay, so annoyingly, I'm not sure what this is. Maybe in your Max CT role, Ned, you can have a word, but I don't know why this interactive map doesn't work on my browser. So yeah, you meant to be able to
I didn't
click
know it
on.
was interactive.
Yeah, you should be able to click on these, and it takes you down.
Double click, maybe.
Oh, no,
No.
no. It was working for a while, then it stopped. But so yeah, you're meant to be able to click on these, and it takes you down to the area where it's got all the additional information. I'm going to just temporarily go back to the previous version, which looks a bit different, but it's the same thing in principle. Main difference is the root objects, those starting points are on the left-hand side, live app, live set, control surface. Everything else is the same. It just goes from left to right rather than top down. But these should work now. So if I go to, I want selected parameters, that's here. So I can see that selected parameter, song view. So let's click on that. It takes me down here. So if I look through here, I can see there selected parameter. Okay, so that's that's a child of song.view. So when we say child, we have child and parent. If we go back up to the top, when you hear child and parent, think of it about like the hierarchy or the structure. You could think of it like a folder structure on a computer. If we go to song and then we go to track and then we go to clip slot, track is like a parent of clip slot, and that's the same as in live, and that if you have a clip slot, it has to be on a track. Okay, and a clip slot is a child of a track. They only exist on a track. So that you have child-parent relationships with things. It's only, I only mention that because you'll see that a lot. So you might think, what does that mean, child? But it's just the relationship between the thing containing it, or if it contains more things. So let's click on song view again, and we can see selected parameter. Now it tells us how we can access it, and all the different children or properties will tell you whether you can get, set, and observe. So we can see, look, we've selected scene, we can get, set, and observe. That means we can get information from the selected scene. So we can ask it a one-off question, like maybe what is the selected scene. We can set it as well. So we can actually, we can set the selected scene in live. That means we can actually change it in live. And then the last one is to observe. And what observe does, observe constantly watches, and it tells you whenever something changes. So with our selected parameter, because we can observe it, that's really handy. That means we can do something in our Max for Live device that says, constantly watch and tell me when the selected parameter changes. So that's something we probably want to use. Okay, I want to use this though. I definitely want to use selected parameter. So I'm just going to copy that for now. Paste that back in here, pop it in a message box. We'll come back to that in a moment. To get to this then, to get to that selected parameter in our device, we can't just type in selected parameter and bung it into an object. We have to kind of follow the path. We use one of these starting points, and I can see the selected parameter, comes from, it starts with live set. And actually it will tell me as well, if I go down here and look at selected parameter, if I scroll back up to the parent song view, it tells me what the path is. And the path is like your coordinates. It's like if someone gave you a list of addresses, streets to go past to get to a certain location. It's the same kind of thing. It's telling me start at live set and go to view. Most of the times you can just copy this path out and use it as it is. So we're going to do a message called path. We put that in, and we use a path message with one of the special live objects, which is live.path. And all live path does, it receives a path at the top, which is like an address, like coordinates, something to go to, and it gives you an ID number out of the left or middle output. So if I click that now, we get an ID number. Providing you get an ID number that doesn't have 0, you're all good. ID 0 is like a reserved one. It's like I guess it's like an error, but it means maybe there isn't anything there. The path you've set doesn't exist. For example, the address, there's nothing at the end of the address. So it's a way of finding out, if something's not worked. But if you get any other number, whether it's a negative or a positive number, you're good. So that means at the moment, this ID1 is temporarily assigned whilst this live set is running to this path. Okay, so we've got live.path, and then we can use that to update. We can use the live.observer. So with the selected parameter, it tells us we can observe it. So what we'll do, we'll use another one of the special live objects, and it's called live.observer. Because we can observe this particular selected parameter, we have to use live observer is the only way of doing it. So what we need to do, we need to send the ID in here. So this tells it to look at live set view, and then we're going to tell it specifically to focus on what is the selected parameter. Okay, so we do that by at the beginning putting in property. So selected parameter is a property of this song view. So we need to do it in order as well. So we'll do trigger bang list. So we're sending first of all, we send the ID, which is a list. It's two ID and a number. That goes in there. Then we trigger the property we want to observe, and we see what we're getting out of the bottom. ID 0. Why is that? Why are we getting ID 0? Uh-oh. Error. Let's see. Probably because there's no parameter selected. It probably is working, but there's nothing selected. So what we need to do at this point is probably bring live back, and let's just make it a bit smaller.
Can I just ask what? Sorry to interrupt. What track have you loaded this on? This device?
Track 3.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's an audio device. I could put it pretty much anywhere.
Is that important? Does it need to know that?
No.
Right.
No, not at this stage. At this stage, I'm just using that as a place to hold this content. It could be absolutely anywhere. It wouldn't matter. Only once you start using things like this, the starting point, this device, does it relate to the track that it's on and where it is actually located. But at the moment, my path is simply saying path live set view. So there's nothing specifically going to any track or anything. It's like working globally, if you like.
All right.
So let's watch this ID 0 and see what happens if I click on a different parameter. Let me go for one of the reverb sends. There we go. So we've got ID 2. So that's the track 3 audio send A. Let's click send B. Okay, I should have been getting different IDs there, but I'm not. Okay, doesn't matter.
You don't need to like re-bang it, do you?
No, it should be.
Yeah.
No, it should just be working. We'll see what happens. I might need to save the device actually. Let's do that. Actually, this is something I need to do at the start. Actually, I need to do a live.this device just to bang this path when we start. So it starts kind of polling the live.observer. That's strange. We'll come back to that in a moment. So we're getting our ID coming out of there. So that's kind of working. We're getting an ID, and that ID currently represents whichever parameter we've selected. So if I clicked on this and I got a ID2, that ID2 represents the send parameter, send A of track 3 or track 2 in programming. And if I went to another one, I got ID 5, that represents this particular parameter. So each of these IDs is unique to the parameter we've selected, and we need to use that later on as well. Let me.
Could you zoom in a little bit on Max?
Yeah.
Or at least where you're focusing in on.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay. So next thing we need to do is we want a way of saying when we have the map, when we press the map button, at that point, it starts to look for the next selected parameter, just like it does when you're using one of the stock effects. So I want to be able to click this, then I come out of the device and I click on something in Ableton Live, and then it kind of uses that ID as the thing to kind of operate on, but it stops looking for any more parameters. So we need to kind of check for a moment and then stop. So we'll do something simple with this. We'll go for, we'll just do it with a gate. And we'll take the output of Live Observer and go through a gate. So the gate is going to be off by default. Map will open the gate. So the map button just gives me a 1 and a rate. Hey, first crash.
Brilliant.
Hey, it's worked.
It's like nothing happened.
Yeah, let's just let me just save that again. Okay, let's try again. Autosave's working anyway. So map gives me a 1 and a 0, so that's going to open and close the gate. So what I want to happen is when I open the gate, that means it's letting any of the IDs come through. That's watching any parameter that I select in live. So the next one that comes through, once I've pressed this, I need it to do some things. I need it to work with, there's another object, live object called, sorry?
Oh, I was going to say live.object, I'm guessing. But
we will use that in a moment. Yeah, we're going to use live.remote. Live.remote is going to be the object that actually, that's the one that can receive signals. That's the thing that will actually use your signal from your wave, your LFO, and actually update the parameter in real time. And the good thing with live.remote is it doesn't fill the undo history in live. So if you try to convert your signal and use it on live.object and send it values, it can has the potential to fill the undo history, whereas live.remote doesn't do that. It's kind of a audio rate object, so that's good. The other one,
So
yeah,
it's sort of like a soft MIDI controller.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. The other one you mentioned, yeah, live.object. So if live.path is the object that you send a path to the coordinates and you get an ID, live.object is it's the end, it's the destination. Once you've got an ID, you send the ID to live object, and then the live.object essentially represents that particular parameter. So if I sent it to, well, let's just try this now. If I go, let's click on this parameter here, that's the reverb, or the A, send A on track 1. It's ID2. If I was to send that into here, into live.object, just trigger that. This now represents this. So if I want to kind of communicate with that parameter, that reverb send, this is how I do it. And I can ask questions. So a simple one to get started with, if you just right click on here, we can do something like get info. Really good one to get going when you're first learning about what you can actually do with these parameters and what's available. And they're all going to be different. If we use a print, and we'll just send this to the Max console, and we'll do get info, and it gives us some information. Now, some of this information will be available through the live object model, the online thing, but it's also nice just to have your own kind of ways of kind of asking, what can I do with you? And if we look at this now, we can see there are some properties of that particular parameter. We can get max, min, name, value. They're all things I think we could use in this device, because at some point we need to know what their minimum and maximum value is, because we might need to scale your LFO so that it works and it operates on the minimum maximum of these parameters. Typically, something like one of these might have even though if you mapped it to MIDI, it'd go from maybe 0 to 127, but in Max, they probably go from 0 to 1. But there are other parameters that will have very different ranges, and some will be kind of bipolar and so on. And we need to know that kind of thing so that your LFO operates properly on it. We could get the name, that could be useful. So if we wanted to do this, we can see if you ever have a property you can either get or set. And again, the live object model will tell you if you can get or set something. So they're properties. So let's just do get name, just test if that's working. There we go, name a reverb. So we know it's talking to the right parameter, and it's given us the name. We could use that actually as a display, so it tells us on your device which parameter it's currently mapped to. So that would be quite handy. Let's do a few of these then. Let's do get things I think we need. We need get min, and we'll do it all as one message. Get max, we'll do get name, and we'll do get value. I think it might be handy if we, just before we map, when we first click on a parameter and we kind of take over, it'd be good if we could store what the default value was. So if you ever turned it off, it kind of restores it back again to what it was originally. Is that useful? Or is that too much?
Yeah, no, I mean, no, I wouldn't have even thought of that. That sounds pretty good.
Let's do that. We'll do that.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna ask for those things there. So let's just clear the console and let's just send these over. And there we go. So hopefully you can see that minimum is 0, maximum is 1, the name is reverb, and the default value is 0 because I hadn't done anything. If I was to change the value like around halfway and do the same again, we can see the value is now 0 points, just under halfway. So that's working. Okay, so that's going to be handy. To get these out of here then in a more useful way, we'll use the root object. So we'll root min, max, name, and value. So they'll all go into their own kind of outputs, and it's going to remove the text at the beginning as well. Let's move you down here. The other thing, right, before we start playing with these though, I'm going to come back to these. I'll just quickly show you that they're all outputting everything we want. So there we go. So we're getting all of our values out there, and we're going to use them to update stuff in a bit. Let's go back to this live.remote then. So live.remote, like I said, this is the object we will send your we're going to send your audio rate signal to it. Now we can test this out in a moment. What we do, we need to send it an ID. We need to send it the same ID of the parameter we've selected. So remember, this is the ID of the parameter we've currently selected. And just to finish our mapping thing off then, so what we want to happen with this, we want it to turn map on, the gate opens, the ID that next comes through when we next press the parameter comes through here, and we're going to send it down to live.object. But we need to do a couple of things. So what we're going to do, I'm going to do trigger list 0. What this is going to do, the ID is going to come in here. The first thing that happens is we're going to send a 0 back to map. So that's going to turn map off and it's going to close the gate. So it stops any more IDs coming through. So it's a way of just ensuring only one ID comes through when you click on a parameter. The list will be the ID. That can come down to, here. So we'll do another trigger, bang, list. So our ID comes out here. The ID, first of all, updates live object. So this object then represents the parameter we've selected. And the first thing we do is we go, right, tell me all your values and minimum, maximum stuff. Okay. And it needs to happen in that order. And we need to kind of tell it what parameter it represents before we send it the messages that we want to ask it. There's lots of different ways of doing this, but this way here works. It's a really simple way. It just lets one thing pass through, then it closes itself until the user turns map on again. So let's test that out, see if that's working. I'm saving a lot now. I've seen it crash. So let's turn map on. So what I'll do, I'll use turn map on, and I'll click on a pan on a different track. Oh, what is going on?
Do you need to trigger the top? Do you need to trigger the path again?
I might need, it's telling me, yeah, setting the ID can't be triggered. No. So this is something that's going to happen. So I think probably somewhere between here and here, it's happening all a bit too quick. So let's put a defer low in. I'm just going to defer the messages to the low priority thread, which is what it tells us to do. And we'll clear this, cross our fingers and try again. So I'm going to click map. The gate's open. It's now waiting for me to select a parameter. Let's do panning on this track. And there we go.
Hey,
that came through. Track panning. And it's got the and now this one's different. Let's go, the range is minimum -1, maximum 1. The current value was 0, so it's in the middle. Okay, so yeah, defer low. The good thing is it will tell you when you get those red messages, it's going to say you need to defer your response. Usually that means using a defer low. What it doesn't always tell you is where you should use it. So sometimes you have to kind of try it out in different stages. But it was probably, I can tell it's happening here because we were trying to update a live object in response to the output of live observer. So it just needed to go between these two, and that seems to fix it. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah. So that bit's working. Then we also want to send that same ID. That same ID needs to go here to live.remote. This live.remote is going to be the thing that actually moves the parameter up and down. So if I was to send the same ID here, and we'll just trigger that again. Let's turn map on. We'll do a different one this time. There we go. So I've done it. You can see as soon as I clicked it, that pan has gone faded, which if I try to click and drag it now, nothing happens. And that means it's being controlled. It actually tells me at the bottom of the screen it's being controlled by this device. So if I was to send in a float, you can see I'm controlling it. Okay. And then we'll try and put your waveform in here. So we should be able to send this straight in. And I need to set your things up again. Let me quickly save. We'll leave it on 3. Right, what am I doing again? I need to
set some values in the set some. There we go. It's doing it. Oh my god, it works.
There we go.
Brilliant.
There we go. So your wave is now controlling that. Let's put these all the way up.
Yeah. So live.remote will take floats and signals.
Yeah.
It's a control source.
Usually you'd use a signal. Most cases I see it's you send it a signal. There's probably some reason as to why you do a signal, because I see most people when they are using a float, they use the sig object to convert it to a signal first. There must be a reason for that I don't know about, but yeah, usually you send it an audio rate signal. The problem we've got, this is probably the complex bit now, is that one's fine because your wave actually goes from
-1 to 1.
-1 to 1. So we could actually put it in here and have a look. And I can see it going minus. I'm guessing it's going, yeah, -1 to 1. Let's just try this on something else then. Let's go. One way of actually turning this off, if you want to stop this operating on here, one way is to actually send the live.remote the ID 0, because that is like a non-address, and that will kind of relinquish control back to live. So we could use that as a way of clearing it later on if we want to. So we'll come back to that. In fact, we'll probably have, let's have a button called clear. We'll switch this to button. Okay, so we'll use that as well. Let's go back to one of those reverb sends. Let's go map again, and we'll do this. So now, can you see what's going on?
Yeah, the values aren't right because it's...
So your wave is going from, yeah, -1 to 1. This is only registering 0 to 1. So it's when it gets to the bottom, it's kind of waiting for half the time before it kicks back in again. So we need a way of scaling this. There's a few different ways of doing this. And if you actually look in I think the stock kind of Max for Live devices like Lfo and so on, they do some serious number crunching in there. And there's probably some really good reasons for it. But let me clear this. I'm going to do it in probably an easier way, but maybe there's something missing, but I'm going to do it anyway because I think it's easier to understand what's going on. Let me move you over here.
I'm guessing it would just be something like a scale object, scale -1 to 1, versus the whatever newly updated values have just come in from the recently identified parameter.
Yeah, and it might be because I didn't notice until a while ago because I've always used scale object, so we can scale one range of numbers to another. But I only noticed a while ago that there's actually a scale tilde object, so you can actually do it with audio rate signal, that's exactly what we want. So to start with, we'll go scale. Now, is your wave always going to be -1 to 1?
Yes.
Okay, so that makes it
easy.
So
any of the kind of minimum and maximum, I assume that we would do at this stage.
Right. So we'll go. The input range is going to be -1 to 1, and let's just say at the moment it's going to go 0 to 1. But we need to update that. We'll update the output range based on these. So we're getting the minimum maximum of the parameter, so we could use them to update this. So we will take. It's going to start getting messy. I've got a neater version of this patch that I'll send over to you after this. So we could scale that there, and we could take the minimum. So when we first mapped this and selected the parameter, we asked it what its minimum and maximum value was, and it told us 0 and 1. So we could use them to dynamically change the scale object. We'd say, right, the low output value is whatever the parameter's low value is, and then the same for the high. Okay. And we'll just do it again, we'll just remap it to something else to see it working. Click map. I'll do it on another reverb send B. And now we can see.
Yeah, it's already
worked
out. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But if I was to do it again, go back to the panning one, because we know the panning does go from -1 to 1, just so we can check that's working. Let's do that. And it's working that way as well.
So what about something, I'm guessing, what about like a filter frequency?
Yeah.
Would that go from 0 to 1, or would that go from 0 to 20,000?
Let's have a look. Probably not. Probably 0 to 1. It's like, I think a lot of times it's like those, I guess it's like the raw values you see on some of the live UI things. But let's try. Let's go for the auto filter. And we'll click map. 135.
20 to
20 to
135.
135.
All right.
Yeah, no idea why, but
That
there you go.
Maybe it's dividing a floating point by. Oh, I don't know.
No idea.
That's weird.
Okay. So something we probably want though to make yours a bit more usable. We probably want to. This is a well and good because it's scaling whatever your LFO is doing to the parameter we've assigned it to. But it'd be nice if we had a couple of number boxes that are that let us kind of set the minimum. Let us kind of scale the LFO, if you like.
Yeah.
So we could do something like that because we're already getting all the information we need to do that. So let's just say we'll go 0 to 100 and we'll do it as a sort of percentage.
And so then I guess you'd multiply the signal going into the scale by, well, I don't know. No, I don't know.
Yeah, you probably could do that. So one way is I'd probably go with I'm just going to use scale objects, just regular scale objects. So what I'm going to do with these, I'm going to say for each scale or for each of these, whoops. I know I'm going to go from 0 to 100 for minimum, maximum. So we'll say, right, scale, the input is definitely 0 to 100. And the output is going to change, but we'll just say to start with it's 0 to 1, but we'll update that. Okay, so this is the value to be scaled, what's coming out of these number boxes. Now what I want it to do, so for the minimum one, I need to tell it what the minimum maximum range of the parameter are. We're already getting that from here. So we go, right, this was the minimum range of our parameter. So that becomes the low output value. This was the maximum. That becomes the maximum output value. I'll just show you this in practice. Let me do that again for this one as well. Oh, it's starting to get messy. So that's going to be the low output value. That's going to be the high output value. And let's just clear that and do it again. So it's working. And then if I put this on 100%, it's 135, which is correct because the upper maximum value was 135, the low end was 20. But if I went to scale this like halfway, like 50%, it's working it out for us. And if I want to go up like here, it's doing that for us really nicely. Okay, then what we can do, we can use these values to update the main scale object. So we'd actually get rid of those. So we're going to send in a scaled version dynamically as we're using the device.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we could do now is I could go, if you watch that parameter there, if I set minimum to 50%, like halfway, it won't go any lower than halfway.
Yeah.
If I don't want it to go all the way to the top, I could just do that.
Yeah.
I could have it just kind of moving around a sort of a center position like that, 50% between 25 and 75. And the other useful thing is we could like go like that and just invert it. So we're inverting the sort of pattern. So when it's higher, it's actually low. Again, these are just things you'd see on the regular stock devices. So with a bit of scaling, we can actually do the same thing ourselves. And it makes stuff like this really, really usable.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, that's kind of it. Maybe try a different LFO shape, draw in some more.
Yeah. Okay.
Some more, sliders, sample sliders. So give the.
So this one.
Yeah. So that's going to set the number of sliders and the number of samples in the buffer. Basically, how many steps they're going to be in the LFO.
Go 64.
So you can draw in whatever kind of shape you want. And try it with sync on. And go to maybe one bar. or 2 bars at the very bottom. Yeah, one of those ones. And then if you set it to none, actually set the interpolation to none with the live tab, and then set the samples to 16. This was kind of what I was thinking of, a sort of 16-step sequencer.
Okay.
Then you're going to get, over the course of a bar, you're going to kind of get like a
16-step
sequencer, sort of API sequencer. I think it works.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Nice. Well, maybe we can sort of spend a bit of time doing some UI and putting it into something I can stick on my Patreon.
Yeah.
I mean, however you want to do it, really. I mean, I don't really think we could maybe take it a bit. I can go in later on and name all the parameters and something like that. Maybe we could just sort of arrange it into something that's.
Yeah, I've got a neater version of this with comments on. So maybe that'd be a better one to give out. It's got comments saying what all the different parts are doing. That might be useful.
Okay.
But I can just copy and paste that in and replace it. So I could do that in a moment if you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should I do that now, actually, or
if you want? Yeah.
This one I made earlier.
Oh wow, brilliant.
Yeah, so I put a few comments on this morning just so you can pass it on. So if I shove my stuff over to the right, and the only thing I should need to do is get rid of that.
And then straight into the scale.
There. That should be it. So my bits are already in a, yeah, they're already there already. So shall I save this and send it back to you?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, here we are back on my computer. So I'm going to, can you see that all right? No.
Yeah.
You can. Right. Okay. So I don't really need all of this stuff. All of your stuff's already been added to presentation. So I definitely want that scope, that tab, that menu, that dial, that tab, that multi-slider, and that number. Let's go add to presentation. I'll just put a comment here. Number of steps always goes to black. I don't want. I'm just going to nick one of your bits of text here. Number of steps, and let's add that to presentation as well. Don't really need that. I think that's pretty much it. So let's see what we can do. Free and sync. That could have that. Let's just put that there. I'm not going to make it look too nice. Just get it going. Maybe let's put that under there. That might make a bit of sense. Maybe put that there. That'll do, won't it?
Yeah.
It works. Brilliant. Set device width. And I think that's pretty much it. I'll just save it.
You could probably stack all my bits on top of each other, actually. They probably don't need to take up all that space.
What, like maybe something like this or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Cool. All right. I might make this look a bit more funky later. So let's see what it's doing. Let's draw in some steps. And let's pull in our delay here. Let's turn the sync off. Map. Whee! There we go. Brilliant.
Hey.
We did it. Our custom LFO. Well, there you go. Well, I definitely learned some stuff. Maybe this is going to be my new rabbit hole. Understanding all of this API stuff. Mark,
Thanks ever so much.
You're welcome.
For showing me that. Is there anything you've got planned for the future right now other than your installations or
get on some new devices? Yeah, it's about time. So yeah, it's been nice watching all the other stuff come out the past few years and getting really inspired. So yeah, you know, I'm into like sequencers and that kind of thing. So yeah, just doing something different with sequencers. I really like the mapping thing. I've never really done too much stuff with mapping as a commercial device, and maybe that'll be the next thing. Some kind of mappable sequencer could be next logical step for me. Yeah.
What about some sort of MPE mapping thing where you could take like the aftertouch, the pitch into separate messages?
Yeah, probably. I got really into the MPE stuff. When I built an MPE arpeggiator called Arpex, and like I said, it was just afterwards they stopped making the controllers. But I'm sure that's going to be on the move. There's MPEs here, isn't it? So it's so powerful. Yeah, and just getting into the different voices you have of MPE and how powerful that is. Yeah, probably would be something to do like that, mapping with MPE sequencing. Yeah.
Brilliant. Is there anywhere like online that I can point people towards in the description of this video?
Yeah, I mean, same as well, Isotonic for any like devices that come out. But I did a course, I think it's a free course I've done with Music Hackspace, which is all about the Live API. So if anyone wants to dive a bit deeper into the Live API, I think it was a 4-week course. I'm sure it was free at the time. It might still be free now. So yeah, there's like 4 sessions worth of Live API goodness. So head over to Music Hackspace and check that out if you want to.
Okay, I'll try and dig that out.
I'll send you the link if you want.
Yeah, do that. Yeah. All right, nice one. Thanks, mate.
Bro, thanks a lot.
That was good fun.